We have some mics. Oh, okay.
Hello, thank you so much. I do care about the budget, so I
All
think
right.
some other people do as well. And I personally believe that Congress should prioritize balancing the budget, but I'm curious, in your opinion, what is their personal incentive to do so? Nothing happens to them when the government shuts down. Do you think the federal budget should be handled by nonpartisan public servants who are not elected? Because, as you said, the budget has become politicized.
Yeah. You know, at the end of the day, I still think democracy is the best form of government, and having people, elected individuals, setting budgets is the best way to go. So to your question about career civil servants versus elected officials, as bad as those elected officials have performed, I still think at the end of the day, it's far better to have them in charge. And by the way, I do think the politics are going to change significantly. It's something I didn't have a chance to talk about. But you've all heard that Social Security is financed through a trust fund, and that Medicare is financed through a trust fund. Well, those trust funds are going broke. As I put up a slide, 10 years, I think, for Social Security, 12 years, and then 7 years for Medicare, something like that. When they go broke, when Social Security goes broke, the day that it runs out of money, let's say in 2031, 2032, benefits for 40, 50, 60 million elderly individuals are going to be cut by 20%. So as people come to realize that a change needs to be made in order to preserve benefits, you're going to start seeing a change in the body politic. We need to save Social Security. That will be the mantra. And we need to save Medicare. They've been good programs for previous generations. We need to save them. Social Security has been reformed twice in its history where benefits have been reduced. In both cases, the action-forcing event was the trust fund running out of money, going bankrupt. So I believe that as the insolvency date of these trust funds comes closer, we will see the politics change, and there'll be some politician that'll stand up and say, I'm here, I've got a plan to save your benefits. So I'm actually fairly optimistic on that score. And they're the drivers of the budget, not the welfare programs. They're the drivers of the budget. Yes?
Yeah, thank you so much for speaking to us. I was wondering if you could point me in the direction of some literature or evidence that supports the claim that you made about how entitlement programs affect the human, or the human capital, I guess, or a person's desire to work or self-sufficiency. Yeah. I've heard that claim a lot, but I personally haven't heard of any empirical strong evidence that suggests that it's necessarily
It's a good question. Yeah.
Because I don't know, it doesn't seem like there's that Social Security benefits or Medicare are that significant that it could completely sustain somebody.
Right. Well, first on the question of incentives, there is a broad literature that comes out of social welfare experiments back in the 70s and 60s and 70s, where people were enrolled into various welfare programs that had varying incentives. So some had high implicit tax rates, other ones had low implicit tax, other ones had large guarantees, other ones small guarantees. And all of the studies that came out of these kind of gold standard social experiments showed that individuals do respond to the work disincentives of the programs. There's a great paper back in the 1980s on the Social Security disability program. You all know that the labor force participation rate of prime age males has been declining for 40 years. This study started back in the 1960s and looked at the decline from the 1960s to 1980s. And the author traced the entire decline in the labor force participation rate of prime age males to that one program, Social Security disability, because the benefits were almost as high as the wages that one could earn if they were working. Now, a lot of people think that Social Security and Medicare are not very generous programs. I don't know what generosity is, right? But here's a statistic for you. The typical married couple that retires this year, will receive, in present value terms, in Social Security and Medicare benefits over their retirement years, over $1 million in benefits. That's how generous the program is. This year, it'll be about $55,000. The median household income in the United States is not much higher than $55,000. So Social Security and Medicare, which were never originally designed to provide for any middle-class standard of living, now provide for close to a middle-class standard of living for the typical recipient. So when you think about a present value, right, that's the value, future value discounted back to today. So having a present value of over $1 million means that when this couple turns age 66, it's like the federal government is going to hand them a check for $1 million. That's what that present value means in sort of normal terms, and rather econ terms. So the benefits are fairly generous. And believe me, they're more generous in Social Security for high-income elderly individuals than for low-income elderly individuals. A college graduate today on Social Security receives more in benefits, and I think it's almost twice as much in monthly benefits than the typical high school graduate does. The typical high school graduate hasn't had the advantage of being able, through their working years, to contribute to a 401k plan or an individual retirement account. That upper income household, that college-educated household, they have. And so in addition to getting their Social Security benefits, they have this tax-deferred vehicle that they can take advantage of. And so when you think about Social Security reform, think about it as well. You don't have to take away that safety net aspect of it, that poverty protection aspect. Focus on those higher income individuals and ask, how much can we shave down their benefits, right? Right down here in the front, or next? Okay, sorry about that. Yes?
Thank you so much for talking. I have two quick questions. First, it seems like the political environment around Social Security reform has radically shifted since 2005. And I was wondering if you could just comment on like the post-Bush Social Security push and post the recession. And then if you have any ideas as far as policy that could be passed in this Congress or like in this political reality.
The second part is easy, nothing. But the first part, so back in the middle of the last decade, George W. Bush decided to make Social Security reform a significant part of his policy package. So he formed a commission, Social Security Commission, to make recommendations for reform. I was on that commission, and one of the recommendations that we made was to slow the growth in future benefits, not reduce anybody's benefits or currently honor rolls, slow the growth in future benefits so they don't grow faster for future retirees than inflation. The current system benefits for the next 10 years are growing faster than inflation. So the real value of these benefits are going up. The purchasing power of the benefits going up. So one of the things we proposed was to say, look, future retirees aren't going to get any more than current retirees are going to get after adjusting for inflation. So they'll be able to say buy the same package of goods and services as today's. Second thing we proposed was to allow young people to take a portion of their Social Security taxes and put them into private personal accounts. Our belief was that a retirement system that invests is far better for retirees than a retirement system that doesn't invest. And Social Security doesn't invest. So we thought, let's allow individuals to take a portion of their payroll taxes, put it into personal Social Security accounts, and you invest your money, and there'd be restrictions, of course, on what you could invest in. But that was sort of the plan. Where did this plan go in Congress? Nowhere. It never even got out of committee. And so it was a very big setback for Social Security reform. But I still think those are the two elements of Social Security reform that we need to put in place. We do one more question down here.
Thank you so much. My question was more of a clarifying question. On one of your slides, you had 48% responsibility for Medicare and Social Security, the current deficit. I was wondering if you knew what the other percentage was, or what programs were responsible for the other percentage.
Yeah, so it's, it's sort of hard to break out, right? You've got a whole bunch of income tax revenue that's coming into the government, and then you've got the defense budget, which is 1/6 of the total. You've got all other programs that are 1/6 of the program discretionary, and then you've got these other welfare entitlements that account for the rest, but they're all a big glob, and there's no revenue that's associated with any of them. The only revenues that we have that are associated with programs, big programs, are Medicare and Social Security. So those programs, you can tie the expenditure to the revenues. The rest are just financed out of a general pot of corporate income tax and personal income tax revenues. So you can't really assign one program and the like. You can look at that chart that I showed you, where you have entitlements going up and defense going down, and get the sense that the defense is not the problem here with our budget. It really is these big entitlements and these discretionary programs. Congress fights every year over the budget. They're not fighting over the budget. They're fighting over. I'm sorry, Scott. I gotta show them this. I go backwards here. The fight is over the black and the green. The fight has nothing to do with entitlements. Those entitlements continue on regardless of whether Congress enacts any legislation at all. Congress has set it up so they go on and on and on, independent of any legislative action. So the battle that they fight every year is over the discretionary part of the domestic budget and the defense budget. And each of those are 1/6 of the total. So they're fighting over the scraps. They're going for the capillary, not the jugular, right? It's a complete, incredible diversion from where the important problem is when it comes to government spending and taxes. In any event, thank you very much. Enjoyed it. Fun.